We have our audience here to welcome you to this week's webinar, Stopping the Violence in America. It really began off with dealing with guns, the gun violence. However, we have changed to just a little bit because of the fact that guns are an issue, but as I always say, the gun is an inanimate object. It takes someone to pick it up, use it in a violent manner. And so what this webinar has been doing has been goaling and morphing into is to really begin to understand how what are the root causes of some of the violent behaviors that allows people to pick up that inanimate object called the gun. And we have come up with a variety of speakers who have brought forth some really innovative tactics, prevention programs, intervention programs, other things that areas that we need to concentrate on to be able to deal with stopping, reducing the crime in America. So we're always happy to have our law enforcement men and women to share with us as well, because they play a very intricate part in this process. But what we're also learning is that they can't do it alone. They have to do it with the community stakeholders that may be advocates or social programs or the church or various other areas of outreach programs that there are in those communities in tandem with our law enforcement officers. Today we have the great pleasure of having Lieutenant Chris Dunn, Lieutenant Reginald Thomas, and also their superior officer, Captain George Meadow from Macon, Georgia, to share with us their views and how they feel they're right there, right there in the smack in the middle of all the situations, but how they feel the best way to begin to reduce the violence. And we know that sometimes the violence occur in certain targeted areas. And so we're looking forward to sharing with them, hearing from them what they feel. Today, I would like to ask, I don't know if the captain, George Meadow, would like to give some opening greetings. That would be great. And then from there, we would like to hear from Lieutenant Chris Dunn. Captain, do you have something that you'd like to share, some opening remarks or just some opening greetings?
Sure.
Share.
Good afternoon from the Bibb County Sheriff's Office and Sheriff David Davis. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to participate in this. It's very important to us that we share some ideas from all the sources that are available to us in the community. I'm going to yield the floor to Lieutenants Thomas and Dunn. Since they are like much more in the field than I am. I'm really like a desk writer and sort of in a managerial position. So these two guys are out there in the trenches. So I'm going to let them get started. Lieutenant Dunn, go ahead.
Excuse me. Good afternoon. I don't know why I'm choked up now, but yes, thank you for having us on and bringing greetings from Macon, Georgia, and where yes, every day we see this and every day we're a part of it. And I guess every day we're working on trying to get our city better to help prevent crimes and to make our city just a better place to live. I won't talk too much. I better let Lieutenant Thomas say hello and I guess we can continue.
Hey, Doctor. Thank you, Lieutenant Dunn, for sharing with us. Yeah, is that Lieutenant Thomas, Reginald Thomas?
Yes, can y'all hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. like to hear from you in the area of how we can begin to reduce the crime in our areas that face America, here in America.
Well, first of all, I'd like to apologize for not being able to give y'all a bio of myself and a picture of myself as y'all requested. It's been very difficult times right here, but I would like to start off by introducing myself. My name is Reginald Thomas. I am a lieutenant with the Bibb County Sheriff's Office. I've been in law enforcement for 33 years. I've been in this world for over 50. I'm not going to tell my age because I know I don't look no older than 25. So we're going to leave it like that. But we're facing in Macon, Georgia, as well as the United States of America, all of us are facing the same problems. Our biggest problem is the lack of fear of God. We haven't gotten away from, hello?
Go right ahead. We hear you. Got you.
I was trying to say something. Young folks don't respect and fear what's real. I mean, you think about it, academically, we're behind. Financially, we're behind. And we have a lot, whoever the beings are, to fill our society with negativity. And when I say society, I'm talking about the way we talk to each other, the way we love each other, the way we listen to each other is in our social media circle. And our social media has a big influence on our culture. And I'm talking about the black on black crime right now. It is a tremendous disadvantage for our culture because everything that's in it is negative. We're always talking about killing each other. We're always talking about selling drugs. We're always talking about robbery. We're always talking about gunplay, gun violence. We never talk about how to build a successful culture. It's not in our music. It's not in our reality shows. It's not in our TV shows. It's not on our Facebook. It's not on our TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Nothing we have that influence our young people is positive. Now, back in the day when I was growing up, my videos, my TikTok, my Instagram, my social media, my Facebook was my parents. It was my church leaders. It was my community leaders who always spoke positivity. I was born and raised in the hood, but the hood was never raised in me because I wanted more. I knew, I was taught to read. I was told about the other side of life. I knew that was a different part of what I was seeing. But even in the hood, even the crackheads, even the winos, even the drunks, even the prostitutes, they always preached something better. They wanted me to be better than what they were. We don't have that now because what I call an OG back in the day spoke positive to me. But OG today try to take a young buck like I was and put them in the game. Excuse my English. For y'all to understand what I'm saying is that people that was in my community that were doing the best always encouraged me as a child to be better than what they were. But today it's like crabs in the barrel. People don't want to see young people succeed, so they try to put them down. We force drugs on our children. We force fast life on our children. You got young girls 10 years old dressing and dancing like they 30 years old. And when they get that unwanted attention, everybody's up and on. But a child should stay in a child place, I believe. Let a child be a child. Let them enjoy their youth. Let them grow up. But I know parents out there dressing their children with wigs on already, child number 12 and 13. Fix that child here. I mean, if y'all want to have a real conversation, you got the right one now, I'm telling you. We having children out of wedlock, but this person has showed you nothing about them that's going to make them a man or a father. Well, yet you still sleep with them and have children. Same thing. Men, y'all out here trying to show you wild loads. You want to be Big Daddy. You want to be Big Daddy Kane, but you out here making babies by a woman ain't showed you not one time that she's ready to be a mother, that she's ready to raise a child in the right way. The moment we got away from God, we was done as a culture. We've always culturally stayed steadfast and stayed with God. And when we allowed people to come in and tell us we don't have to read, you don't have to write, you don't have to be educated. You could rap, you could dance, you could dribble a ball, and we fell for the trick. We've been downhill ever since. Who teaches violence? Where does violence come from? Where does hatred come from? Because we're all born with love. God is love. So if we're born with love, who's teaching this to us? We are. When I walk out my door, I'm not scared of anybody else but the people that are around me. You understand? You could be a victim to anything. But what I'm telling y'all, we got to get real. We got to get serious about taking back our culture. We got to do that. So good thing, but we don't talk about those people. Where everything we got is negative. What happened to the George Jefferson? We're moving on up. What happened to the Cosby Show? Well, one was a doctor, one was a lawyer. We don't portray that image nowhere, no any place else. Why not? What happened to the music when we talked about love? When we talked about helping our brothers? When we talked about helping our sister? If you had water and somebody had Kool-Aid and somebody else had sugar, we had some more Kool-Aid. What happened to that? We have allowed people to get away from that. We have allowed this negativity to infiltrate our culture, which as we are receiving what we put out there. If you put good gas in your car gonna run good. Good things gonna come out your car. You put gasoline in your car, you're gonna have a messed up engine. We putting bad gasoline in our children, and we wonder why they act the way they act. They're acting out what's in them. Number one selling toy now is a water gun. It's still a gun. It's still a gun. On PlayStation 5, all the videos about killing. They still using the gun. The remote controller is still a gun. And what we allow on TikTok and all the other social media outlets, that's still a gun. So how we gonna get away from gun violence? How we gonna get away from violence? How we gonna get away from literacy when everything we do is shoving it in their face? So, if you ask me, that's how we're gonna have to change it. Hello?
Yes, Lieutenant Thomas, you came out the gate powerful. And as a law enforcement person, I like that you started off with lack of God. God has left the community. God has left the moral construct of our community. But what I would say to you is that, and when you were talking, I remember when you were talking about the OGs, that's our village talk. So those are the guys out there who, the older guys who were, living the street life, but, making it out there. They would at least impart some positive words. You don't have to be like me. You go this way. So I do remember, I like what you said about that, because I was sharing with some other people, Lieutenant, that I remember back in my day on Easter Sunday, it was standing room only.
Correct.
And because that's when the prostitutes, the pimps, and everybody would at least go to church on Easter Sunday. They would show up on Easter Sunday.
Absolutely, you're right.
So I see Chris Dunn, you're laughing because you know what I'm talking about. It would be standing room only. We had to get to church early to get our seat. But that was a sign that there was still some principles, as you said, inculcated in the OGs somewhere along the line, that was there. And that kind of stuff is filtering out. I agree. Another thing, and I'm going to open it up. One thing I was thinking about, because we're getting together with a lot of the pastors, some pastors on here and some other social leaders, on how we can bring the best practices into play within the community, working together. A lot of people have great things they're doing, and how do we bring together collaboratively? But one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking about TikTok and all the images that are out there, in our community, we never, two things. My father's a social worker. And you brought up Bill Cosby and George Jefferson and all those people. You know, the media is to say back in the 60s, I remember that they're 50% of the African American or poverty stricken kids, especially African Americans, they grow up with no father in the home. But see, they don't put on TV special documentaries every day to 50% that do. See, that's a paradigm shift, right? That's a subliminal message that can be out there as well. That's why you were mentioning the Cosby's. And that plays a role in prevention crime. Secondly, I was thinking, when you have an isolated community, such as the poverty at risk community, so many times African-American community, some of the images that I realized when I started thinking about it last night was the images of the mafia.
Mhm.
You know, that's where we got our images from. I was watching a mafia program and I said, they're talking just like the mafia, you know, and that's what we thought is cool. And that was our role models. So now you see the result of it, gangs and, inhumanity. They're so inhumane toward one another. So that was some of the images that were out there that a lot of the community kids have been watching and been following. That's something we can think about. But I want to thank you so much for those things, because we do need to take back our culture, our culture of our church culture, where the pastor and the community, the church people had a very strong impact in the community, and that's a historical fact. And so that is missing. And so we want to thank you so much for those words that you just shared with us. Lieutenant Dunn, did you have something to add on to that?
You can't really add on to Lieutenant Thomas. No, those are things that we've talked about here. I've kicked them to other members of the staff, and we've talked about, and some of the things that we wrestle with is, are we doing enough, and what more can we do? And we've all talked about more partnering with the family element, the law enforcement element, and any other societal element out there, because I think what they say, it takes a village to help raise a child, and law enforcement is a part of that village. And that's why pretty much on a daily basis, we're in a school inside that child's village, making contact with, making sure that they see us, making sure that in their terms of the school, making sure that their words are their community partners. And a lot of times when we go visit schools, they call us community helpers, community partners. They don't really refer to us as law enforcement a lot of times. And we want them to think that, hey, we are law enforcement, we have a job to do, but we're there for you, to help you. And that goes outside of law enforcement. And we're here for our kids pretty much from the time we contact them in pre-K or elementary school, all the way up to high school, and then on into adulthood. And it's good for me to see when some of them contact us back saying, hey, Lieutenant Dunn, how you doing? I'm graduating from college, and congratulations, keep up the good work. I've gone into the military, keep up the good work. And those I'm proud of, but the ones that we don't hear contacting, sometimes we have to worry about. And when we see that face on the news, and then we know we've tried to help, but like as Lieutenant Thomas said, we got to get them away from that culture. And I'd like to throw another word out there, that if to the parents or to anyone, not necessarily a parent, but anybody, any adult, if that child is not socializing with you, who are they socializing with? And a lot of times that brings in the culture, which Lieutenant Thomas talked about. That culture is very, very important. That socialization. People that do wrong things want to hang around people that do wrong things. But we got to make sure that we culture, make sure we are there for them to do the right thing.
Yeah, thank you. It takes a group effort. I know that we're doing some little more research on what has been working, and they call them interrupters, people who can come in, and the greatest interrupter is the family that can come in, those families that can come in and say a couple words, and that is part of, if not intervening, it's prevention, and then there's post-traumatic situations that the kids need to deal with, who are victims of violence and who are perpetrators of violence. They have trauma too. And how do we address those things? So do you have any statements on that? And after that, I would like to ask Dr. Madeline, and she said here that God and family values everything, and it's true. Our whole, anyway, we know that anyway, there's a system that we have to deal with to cut that, so that we can begin to rebuild the family values within our communities. Dr. Madeline Clark Alexander, are you there? I'd like to hear from you.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Sure, Tom. Yeah, let Officer Thomas say something, and I would like you to come on as well, Dr. Alexander.
Hey, I'm sorry, Doc, but I did want to say that we do have to get the information out there about trauma, especially for our culture. We gotta let our parents know and let our kids know it's okay that you're dealing with something. The problem, the thing is that you're dealing with something. For a long time, we get very offensive when people tell us meaning our culture, that we need to talk to somebody about our problem. We need to talk to a psychiatrist. Maybe that's some mental issues going on. Like that was a bad thing. That's a common thing now. And it don't necessarily be mental issue. It could be the loss of a loved one. It could be the loss of a toy. But whatever the trauma is that some of our children are going through, we do need to address it. But it takes the whole village, it takes the family being involved to work out that trauma. So it takes a mom, dad, grandma, uncle, whoever, to recognize that this young man or this woman is dealing with trauma, and we need to be their support. We need to help them through it. Sometimes even as grown people, we dealing with trauma and don't realize we dealing with it. So you brought up a very good point about that, and we have to keep pushing resources, letting the community know where the resources are. But a resource is no good if you're not willing to receive the resource. So we got to start letting our people know we need commercials, we need advertisement, we need one-on-one conferences, and let them know, hey, whether you think you got trauma or not, still go talk to somebody. Still go seek further knowledge about what it is that you think that you know, because you might not know. But that's all, Doc. I ain't gonna hold up all your time, but I just wanted to say that was a very good point. And we are doing that in Macon, Georgia. We are putting information out there. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And there's another program that I was doing in reference to that, and this is important for all to know, is that it's almost a misnomer. You don't talk about mental illness in the African American community. So I was doing a mental health in the African American community, and I was dealing with the trauma that we have gone through historically, the trauma that is now within our communities that has not been addressed, and I think it contributes greatly to the dysfunction and the violence that are in our communities. Dr. Madeline, could you please come on, and then anybody else would like to share, would love to hear from others that are out there. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Greetings, everyone. I want to start off with saying, Lieutenant Thomas, you hit the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, you drove it right in there. When we're talking about our community, it's so many things that has been taken away. talk about the kids, and we go back to our time when there were plenty of basketball courts. You had street basketball playing, even if it was into the night. You had adult supervision, and it was okay for you to correct someone else's child. But now it's not. You know, we have become sort of isolated in our communities with that negativity. You talked about the shows that was on TV, and I was going to put this in the chat, but I said I would save it because I want to hear, you know, you guys' opinion. What happened to the Jeffersons? What happened to the Cosbys? Was that systematically dismissed? Where those positive images were not, you know, made available? Because when you talk about TV time, when you're talking about family time, now what do you watch? You know what I mean? So there's nothing to watch, which is okay, because that brings you back to family, and that brings you back to having that conversation with a child. How was your day? You know, and if a child said their day is good, allow them to expound upon that. You know, so many times in our culture, you're absolutely right. You have young parents that don't have parenting skills, and they're doing the same thing that their children are doing. But how do we start to repair that? How do we start to fix that? Reverend Oliver knows. My thing is, I'm big on mental health in the African American community. You know, we did receive that information that it was a stigma. If you talk to someone, something was wrong with you. What goes on in this house stays in those house, but in that house. But we have to get away from that, because we see that it's not working. It's not that we have to completely cross over into how other cultures live, but we need to adopt some of those behaviors, because a lot of those cultures have been seeking help since birth. So
Right.
and that's what we want to take a look at. We want to take a look at what's going on and how to begin to repair. Yes, the prevention is the answer. We do need to get into the elementary schools. We do need to, you know, talk to them and have mentors and support them. Well, what do we do about the kids that's already out on the street? There's no way. I don't care what the stats look like. You can't tell me that some of those young guys that's out here that they've lost complete sense of their mind, but they have no wherewithal. Come on, the brains for some of these kids, the brain haven't even fully developed. The brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25, 26 years old. You're talking about 18. You're talking about, let's go to 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. The young adults are getting access to these guns. How are they getting access to these guns? I'm a grown woman, and I'll have to ask someone where to go and buy a gun, so we know they're not buying them. How are those guns getting into our communities? You know, back in the day, they used to talk about genocide.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have to talk about that any longer, because they have given us the tool that's needed for us to kill ourselves. So yes, let's take control of our communities. Let's take control. Well, before we can take control of our communities, we have to take control of our families. Mm-hmm. Let's take control of our families. We talk about single family homes, and a single parent home could be a male or female and be a single family. But yet we have some of those same issues in dual homes as well. So without God, we'll never be able to turn the situation around. Taking the prayer out of schools, was that a strategic plot? But if you teach your child at home, you can pray anywhere. You can pray everywhere. So again, it starts at home and developing those family values, teaching our children how to pray at home, teaching our grandchildren how to pray at home. So wherever they go, they can be covered with prayer. This is a time where, and please make no mistake, sometimes I feel like the bottom has to fall completely out in order for something to be raised and lifted up. And I know that's one of the greatest fears in the United States of America, that the Black man is going to find out who he really is and come into his own. Amen. So as we move forward, we plan strategically the next steps to take. I'm sure Reverend Oliver is more than happy that you guys have just checked in for today. My soul has been lifted up because for me, it's nothing like a Black man knowing who he is and whose he is, because that is what's going to change the world. That's what's going to change the violence in our communities, because they're kings. They're kings. They're misunderstood. They're misled. And just like those negative things are coming into the communities, we can change that around for some positive things to come to communities and start acknowledging our young Black kings, our princesses, and our queens, simply because all are not bad. And I'm gonna stop right there, because you know I can get into a sermon, Reverend Oliver, but I'm gonna hold on to that. And I thank and praise God for you guys coming on and fellowshipping and giving your expertise. Is powerful. It's powerful.
Can I make a comment? Hi everyone. Hi, my name is Reverend Davadi. I'm Macon Beat County Coordinator for UPF. I would like to thank you so much, Lieutenant Thomas. And I believe Colonel Carswell is here. Colonel Carswell is here as well, if you would like. Colonel Carswell also worked with the Sheriff Department, and Colonel Carswell has been very instrumental with Peace Road, with National Parents Day. Awesome, wonderful sheriff in our city. One thing I see in Macon, Beat County, our mayor has a project called violence prevention. And not only that, he has the Council of Clergy that we meet every month. I was wondering if the pastors come together from all walks of life, and we have a luncheon every month. I was wondering if each pastor can maybe adopt 2 or 3 officers, and to pray for them. Also, one thing that I do, I'm an evangelist, you know, I spend a lot of time with young people in the streets. I do a lot of street walk. Believe it or not, like a wall of Jericho has fallen down. There has been the areas that is shot, you know, like a gun violence. I walk, I pray, and a great result come about. So locally, how to deal with the, prevention and stopping violence locally. I was wondering if this Council of Clergy can come in to somehow together with the police officers. If you have individual young people who are looking for a mentor. Many of these African-American Christian pastors, they are wonderful mentors for young men. So I am just, proposing this, and our beloved Colonel Carswell is here. He's my pastor. He's my pastor. I go to his church, so he can make some comments maybe.
Reverend Tabati, I would like to hear from Carswell, Pastor. If you can unmute yourself, and then I see a law enforcement officer or Brother Sinclair. I'd like to hear from him as well. Go ahead. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon to everybody. I will bring that up at the Council of Clergy next Thursday. We have a luncheon next Thursday. And I'll be sure to bring that up with Dr. Ficklin, what you suggested, Dr. Davadi. And it's great to hear from everybody, see everyone. I'm kind of mostly just listening today, but I'm grateful for what I'm hearing, and I believe we're going to get some positive results. So I yield to Captain Sinclair. Good afternoon to everybody.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for your comment.
Yes, sir.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's Captain Sinclair. Lieutenant Thomas, he nailed it when he mentioned about our young people. I think it's going to take a community effort, And I think we're doing that here in Bibb County. And we just got to continue to stay positive and stay focused. And as the young lady just said a few minutes ago, all of our children are not bad. We have to accept, you know, what they're doing at the moment, but continue to be that positive, you know, change in their lives, so they know that they're loved and assured that they're going to be able to cope in this society. That's all I have to say at this time.
Thank you. Thank you. Tom, Lieutenant Thomas, like you said, you nailed it. I'd like to say that I am also the vice president of UPF, which is the sponsor of this program, this webinar, but also the president of what we call the Moral Black Leadership Foundation. And what that entails also is what our brother Thomas and everyone was saying, is that we need to bring our community back to God. And we need to, our community historically has always played a very intricate role in the moral construct of this nation. If we go back to Martin, we go back to listening to we played a very strong, because the church was the crux of our foundation, and the crux of our foundation for our community, and we're losing it. So the Moral Black Leadership is saying we need to go back to that. We need to take a moral stance and be proud of that moral stance, and understand that it has always been the backbone of what we can contribute to not only our community, but we can contribute to America, and we can contribute to the world community in a positive manner. So I'm really happy to hear, especially the law enforcement brothers and gentlemen here who are really talking about our God being the foundation of what we are and how change can really come. And then God works through people. God works through programs, you know, and we're looking at what are those things that are missing in the community or need to be reenacted in the community, can help with the prevention, intervention, and the crime that we are facing. Anyone else? The floor is open for anyone else who wanted to say something. I see Mr. Reverend George Russell. If you wanted to share a few words. I know Mr. Ray McCready had shared something also within the chat box. You're muted.
Yeah, Reverend Oliver. Go ahead.
If you wanted to say a word or two, open up, ask a question. You have all these great men here that have shared some profound points.
Yeah, okay, I could go ahead briefly. I guess I'm hailing from Richmond, Virginia. We do have similar problems here. Matter of fact, I'm part of a group that's been recently founded about 3 months now, that's coming out of Henrico, one of the surrounding county of city of Richmond, called the Action Group. And so we are confronting the same kind of problems and meeting together to see how we can actively work together to address this problem. Earlier this month, I should say, we had Lieutenant Loy. He's actually one of the officers in the Henrico County that's heading up some type of a task force, or trying to deal with this effort. And they form a coalition acronym FCC that has to be with F stands for faith. And so FCC is actually a coalition of faith-based organizations and the community FCC. And so they are trying to bring in speakers, of course, to get various ideas and to see how they can address this problem. I'm first hearing about this because I'm new to this particular group. So I listened carefully to what they had to say, and sounds pretty good, but I think that overall, oftentimes we're dealing with there's just the externalities of the problem, and that in itself can be a problem if we are focused only on the external. You know, like giving a bandage type or some kind of topical cream that anoints something that is more cancerous, which is deeper inside, and there's a problem there too. So part of the challenge that I think that we have is to have a deeper sense of who we are as humanity. That's number one. A deeper sense of what is our purpose of being. These, of course, touching some very profound spiritual, philosophical areas, but we have no choice. We have to go there because we have reached a point right now, which is boiling point, not only on local levels, but on the global stage as well. So that we're at the point of trying to say, okay, I'm going to shoot a nuclear war now, as Putin is saying. It's a global problem, but it comes down to the local area. So we have to address these deeper, profound questions. And this is not done by just some religious dogma of a particular denomination. It has to be a combined effort of all that we are. If we're talking about our community, we have to scope the entire community, irrespective of what denomination, race, nationality, religion, whatever background that we belong to, or even sexual areas, we have that problem too. But we need all those people. If there's to be peace, there has to be peace for everybody. It cannot be just for some. And it does not mean that we have to compromise our deeper sense of values about being, but there is definitely common ground. And this is where the answer lies. It lies in finding the common ground to who we are, purpose of life, and what we are to do together. And this is a big problem that is rooted deeply within the family. And it's not today's family, it's the family of the past. We are just a fruit of all of that. That's who we are, a fruit of all of that. And so there it is. The answer lies right in there, where God is the originator and author of all the purpose and the family and the community and of the globe. We have to rediscover these deep things. And conclusion is that, think about it. Jesus Christ, whom I truly believe as my Lord and Savior, he came to try to resolve this kind of problem.
Yes.
And he was not entirely successful. He was partially successful to some extent. And so there it is. We are left with the quest to find the root of this answer. You know, Reverend Mrs. Moon comes saying that this is truly so. We have to understand God's original purpose for us. We have to understand the root of the problem to begin with. And that's something that,
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we have to do that direction, that path.
Jesus says,
Thank you so much. What I would like to make very clear, thank you, Reverend Russell. You know, we're dealing with a problem, and this is what violence. And we look at the scope of violence in America, where America is a cross-cultural country. And there's violence coming from everyone, you know, in all cultures. But I think until we can be able to look specifically at unique category, and that's what we're looking at in our group. Also, is look at you have violence, you have mass murders, you have gang violence, you have this, and each one as a whole picture, we can look at how to decrease reduce violence. But we also have to look at incrementally the root cause. Everyone's trigger for violence is not the same. There's a general, but because of their cultural backgrounds, you know, it contributes to why a root cause of their violence. And as Reverend Russell just said, all violence and it comes to the root cause from our descent from our separation from God. But we need to really look at, and I'm grateful for everyone, because we have to look at category and look at everything in a category. Okay, this is this community. Why is this community, you know, have this particular problem more than this community, you know? And as we look at that, we can help you begin to treat the symptoms more internally, because that's what they're doing right now. We put a Band-Aid on, as Reverend Russell says, on a wound that needs stitches, because you're not dealing with the root cause of why this violence has occurred within specific communities and within America as a whole. And each one is just slightly, little slight nuance of why some people engage in violent behavior. Anyone else like to share? Thank you, Reverend Russell, for your thoughts.
Yeah. Reverend Oliver, Ray McCready.
Yes, Ray.
Seattle. Yeah. I know it. I'm on the other side of the country, up in the corner. We're a beautiful area. I just wanted to say thanks to everybody for their sharing. Beautiful sharing.
Can we spotlight him, please?
Oh, now I'm gonna get nervous. But anyway, I did appreciate the PBS. They had specials on things like the Black Church, the influence, the good influence that brought to America. And I think there's a principle that when people go through difficulty and keep faith, it moves people's hearts. And then as was mentioned by Reverend Russell, I think it was, because human beings fell away, it led to certain cultures, violence. I mean, you don't have to read past page 6 in the Bible, and Cain murdered his brother. So, I mean, the violence started pretty early on in the whole situation. But if we bring it down to today, I think it's important that Dr. Alexander and all of the good men of the law enforcement are talking about. Yeah, violence. Every community, Reverend Oliver, as you said, it has its particular things. But basically, I feel like it's pretty simple. People in their original mind from God feel like I should be receiving love. I should be respected. I should be cared about. Many times they don't feel that. So what does that cause? It causes like some frustration, right? Then you got to be trained, as was a Lieutenant Dunn or Lieutenant Thomas said. If you're brought up in a certain training in a godly way, you have some tools. You have some tools to deal with it. Otherwise, you're just frustrated. And what do you do when you're frustrated? You don't act well. I grew up in Montana, and we had a lot of people called rednecks. And every weekend, and there's not many African American people in Montana. There's a few, and we loved them up because that's the way it was. The media, but the people that were suffering up there, of course, were the Native Americans, right? They were out on their reservation. But the rednecks, they get all frustrated, drink some beer, and go out, and basically, what do? They look for somebody to fight. So if they don't have the tool or the mindset to go a different way, to basically go against that, that's what we're talking about. I think Dr. Alexander is talking about tools. We need the tools. We need the culture. That was beautiful about the culture. We need the proper culture. So it's basically that war is still going on. And I thank you for all the officers of law enforcement and peace. I guess we call them peace officers, right? So we need the peace police, eh? And Reverend Russell and others. And then, it's a battle. We got to just keep fighting. It's like you can't give up. That's all I got to say. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that, because one of the things that came to my mind was, when you're saying in Montana and then different communities, Hispanics, all these communities, they're triggers. What are the triggers? And many times triggers are associated with your cultural values and order, enculturation that has everything to do with your community. Anyone else?
I would like to say something about culture and violence. You mentioned about violence and you are talking about culture. Right now, there is a revolution taking place in Iran. Please allow me to say a few minutes. Please don't cut me off. It's very heavy on my heart. I'm originally from Iran, and in my country, you talk about culture. If a woman show the hair, and not cover it, she will be arrested and she will be murdered or put in prison. You're talking about culture and violence. When the violence become state level law, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard are a terrorist wing of Ayatollah. It is not Islam. It's not the kind of Islam that you see in America. It's a very violent terrorist type of Islam. They police young people, Generation Z, which is 15 years old, 30 years old, 43 years old, 43 years under oppression. The same thing that racism did in American culture, and the scapegoat was Black people, innocent Black people. The same thing gender apartheid is doing in Iran. And the target is girls age 7 years and up, and women. And young people are so sick and tired of this violence, sexual assault, and repression. Internet is darkened. All these messages that we get, actually, kids are very, very genius in technology. So the kids are sending all this report. There is blood going on. This is the revolution called Woman Life Freedom. It's the first time revolution led by girls and women in the history, because they risk their life. They know they will be tortured, killed, or murdered, or even when government killed the 16 years old and the 14 years old, they do not release their body to their parents. They do not release it. So, and then not only that, they take the mother of the victim, they bring it to the TV and force her to confess that my children were, or my husband or my daughter was not murdered by government. It's a brutal form of violence, which is legalized. It's illegal. It's, you know, this kind of, how you say it, violence being illegal, promoted by state is the highest level of violence. In America, there is law and order. In America, still we have the law. Still in America, we, if people commit crime, they can go to court, they can be fixed, they can go to correction. But in a country like Iran, which is totalitarian, which is dictatorship, and they misuse the name of Islam, there is no law. There is all those people, Ayatollah, who's supposed to represent Islam, has $95 billion. The people, the money of the people on his, that he breed into terrorism. He trained Revolutionary Guard, which is a terrorist wing, to send it to Syria, to Lebanon, all kind of other country, to blow up the synagogues. So people are suffering. I am so grateful to live in America. I am so grateful. You know, all these Iranian people, if you see in America, not even one is on the welfare. All of them, they are doctors, journalists, they are educated people, they contribute to the society. Contribute. Doctor. So the point is that in America, we have freedom. We better use our freedom to advance God's kingdom upon the earth, because from us, I want you to stand in solidarity with the people in Iran. We have a prayer going on every Saturday. Please let me know. Woman Life Freedom. Biden, as well as the president of Canada, is standing in solidarity, and the whole Europe is standing in solidarity with them. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Sure. Actually, why I think this webinar is very important is that as America plays a very strategic role in its influence. And for my ministry, we believe that God himself conceived America for a greater purpose than America.
Yes.
And that's why America is a greater influence. America is the first really substantial underwriting of a Christian nation. So a lot of our laws are written based on some moral constructs. Are we living it or not? Therefore, why are we having this webinar? Why was this webinar dealing with the guns and violence in America, which was Mother Moon had asked that to be something that she wanted us to address. Why? Because if we really deal with the internal situation or curb or reduce the violence in America, America can influence the world. America should be a model nation. It should be the nation that people look at as a model, as a reference point. Therefore, this webinar and what we're doing, we think is critically important, because then we can begin to look at Iran. We can begin to show the world how to reduce the violence in America. You know, people have complaints about America, that they watch American programs that are influencing other people around the world to be violent. So we have, but I want to thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Davati, for helping us to really hear what our other brothers and sisters are suffering from, you know, when it comes to violence and also unfair treatment. And so especially, we understand that some people here, we understand how that unfair treatment feels like. Thank you so much for that. But I just want to, as we're concluding and winding down, want to thank anyone who wants to say one word, but get some closing remarks from Lieutenant Thomas, Lieutenant Chris Dunn, and would like to just to share with you in closing also that we would like to continue to work with you and create some collaborative efforts. Dr. Alexander and myself, we began to create a group right now to put all these best practices, put all these ideas together. Not that we're trying to reinvent the wheel, but we realize a lot of the wheel has already been invented. How do you bring them collaboratively into work together that we're not only influencing our own neighborhoods, but we are influencing the nation at a whole. So this is what we feel this webinar will morph into, and we're beginning to do that. So like with the Dr. Thomas talk, those are critical points. Sometimes those points are not looked at clearly. We're not looking at historical trauma. Everyone has historical trauma somewhere. We don't want to look at those things. We have to look at those historical traumas that is compounded with other stuff, and other stuff, to where you do see a subculture. You see, the subculture didn't just come out of nowhere. Black Americans, Hispanics, or all those people in the at risk, they are not born, they're all children of God. They're all born with God's spirit in them. God breathed the breath of life in all his children, you know. But, you know, we are faced with an environment that has enculturized us in a way that's not indicative of our Creator. Anyone, Dr. Thomas, I know he probably had to move on, but as he's still there, would like to give a closing remark. Lieutenant Chris Dunn, would you like to share a point?
Or Colonel Caldwell?
I can.
Don't worry,
No,
Dunn is coming on. He's done.
Yeah, I can say that I think these are avenues toward a better United States, or our better city here in Macon. Talking about it and keeping it on the forefront, I think, is a good start. And then, as I said, we can choose an action plan at which way we need to move. But keeping it out, keeping it thought about, keeping it talked about, makes it better for us here in law enforcement, and we appreciate that. I do say sometimes we do have to step backwards and seek other help, which I think we at the Sheriff's Office here, we do understand that other people specialize in trauma more so than we do. So that's why we've kind of developed community partners, so we can reach out to those partners and say, hey, we need help with this one. But I think good events such as this and keeping it out, doing it regularly, I think this is a start to the healing process and start to making our locality better. And maybe we could be models for other localities. And just want to say thank y'all for the opportunity to be a part of this platform. And let's do it again.
Look forward to it. Lieutenant Thomas, you're muted. You're muted. If you can unmute yourself.
All right, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. We can hear you.
I just want to say thank y'all for allowing me to speak and voice my concern. As y'all can see, I'm very passionate about trying to help the youth as well as anybody that needs help, because helping them actually helps me. And I want y'all to know that I trained Lieutenant Dunn. That's why he speaks so elegantly. And I'm glad to see him stepping to the plate. But Thank you guys. Like I say, anytime y'all need us, we're here, and we'll definitely reach out to you all, and let's be a partnership. Let's be a resource for each other.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mhm.
The Macon Bibb County clergy.
Caldwell, unmute yourself.
We can't hear you.
Down to the lower left. There you go.
Got it. Okay, again, I'm just thrilled to hear so many different views about a problem that all of us are experiencing to a large degree. I know here in Macon, we had unprecedented number of violent deaths and murders in our community. Never seen anything like this before. And that's indicative of what's going on in a lot of cities around the country. It's good to hear this problem addressed from a spiritual perspective. As I heard Reverend Russell and so many others, and Dr. Devati and you, Pastor Oliver, speak to it is a spiritual problem to me, and it all starts with our relationship with God. And we get that right, and then we can fix a whole lot of these other problems. But I'm glad to hear so many people speak with so much knowledge and compassion about this issue. I think this is a great start. I got to give a shout out to Dr. Devati. She's been in this Macon community, I don't know how long, but I've been knowing about over a year. She's been to our church many times. She loves the Lord. And she just loved the Lord with such a passion that it permeates the whole place when she shows up. She's been a ray of sunlight to middle Georgia. We're glad to have her here. And we've also got the Ambassador for Peace that she works with us on that. I mean, it's her program. We kind of working with them. And that's what it's going to take, because we all are, as the Bible says, ambassadors for Christ and ambassadors spread goodwill and good news. And I'm so glad to see that my fellow workers, my co-workers at the Sheriff's Office expressing their views in a way that, except for Thomas, I haven't heard from the other ones in such a way, but Lieutenant Thomas, we talk about this stuff all the time. And I'm just glad to know that people around the country are experiencing and want to address these issues. So I'm excited. Thank y'all. I didn't mean to take up too much of your time, but I would certainly like to see this keep going on, and anything that we can share, we certainly want to learn from you guys as well. And I think we're onto something good. So thank y'all for allowing me to say a few words, and thank you, and thank God for what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate those words. Captain George Meadows, if you can say one or few words, I know we'd love to hear any closing remarks.
Yeah, I think my guys did a wonderful job today. Appreciate it, y'all. I knew I had made the right decision picking those two to be on today. Look, and yes, true. Religion and morality is important. It's the foundation. It's the building blocks. But we also, someone asked me last week, said, "Hey, what is it that you need from us?" Yes, we need the religious leadership. We need you to go out and try to win souls and change people. But at the same time, when you're out there, try to change people's opinion of law enforcement. Every time you hear somebody say defund law enforcement, give them an argument. Tell them why not. Tell them, we need your support. We need the public support. We need to turn the public's view around to where it used to be and where it should be. We need to support our law enforcement. We need partners out in the community like you. We need partners in the business community, neighborhood watch, everywhere. We have got to approach, this is a problem that we got to approach from multiple facets, air, sea, land, everywhere. We need, it's gonna have to, yes, we got to change hearts, souls, and minds, but we've got to change laws. We've got, and this is a time I keep seeing all these organizations come up, hey, I've got government grants. Where do you need money at? Yeah, we need money. Where we need money at is paying law enforcement, first responders better so that we can compete against other careers out there available out there. But we also need a better view of the general public of the field of law enforcement. And that's going to take a lot of change and a lot of effort from a lot of people.
Yes, I thank you so much for those remarks. And actually, I think I was remiss to mention, I said I was going to mention that this webinar has nothing to do, and we rejected the whole concept of defunding the police.
Yes.
I know that behind that, there's other nefarious agendas. I don't know what's what would be the outcome? What's the objective of that? You know, the real objective. It's how we now can, you know, spread out those funds and to help the community, help the police do better in dealing with the stakeholders in those communities. Yes, we can divert some funds, but to defund the police doesn't make any sense to me. Because when I am in trouble, I sure would like to call someone, and I like to be there on time. Amen. Amen. So God bless you. Want to thank you so much, all the officers, and thank you, Captain Meadows, who me and you have spoken a few times on the phone, and I always hear underneath that you have a deep concern as well for turning this around and reducing crime and making your county and your state and ultimately America a better place to live. Everyone, God bless you. We will stay in contact. I'll be calling on you. God bless you, and we'll see you next week. Devati, Reverend Devati, thank you so much for being a catalyst for these great gentlemen.
Oh, they're wonderful.
Thank you, sir.
Colonel Carlson is my pastor.
Amen. Amen. Okay, God bless. Have a great, see you next week.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
God bless you all. Have a safe week.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Alexander.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Darlene.
bless.
Yeah, thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Great show. Thank you. Thank you for doing all these.